Coming up next on This Week in Radio Tech, we've got Chuck Kelly from BE Elenos talking about what you didn't see at NAB. Also, Jeff Adams is with us. Got a great camera, and he does RadioPix. That is video in the radio studio. Talks about that. And we start things out with Mike Catfish Dosch talking about Angry Audio and the cool Studio Hub things that you can use to make your life easier and what you would have seen at NAB with that. Coming up next on TWiRT. This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcaster's General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support. Online at bgs.cc. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. By Nautel, keeping you connected with your community with support and webinars. Online at nautel.com/webinars. And by Max Connect Wireless, prioritized high-speed internet service designed for transmitter sites and remote broadcasts. Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we are talking about everything from the microphone to the light bulb at the top of the tower. I'm Kirk Harnack in the Telos Alliance studio. Could you tell? And look, we got a new logo here from the Telos Alliance. It's Love What You Hear. I want to thank Telos for providing me with some time off every Thursday and some nice gear here in the studio to do the show. Love the folks there and the technology, and that's where I get a lot of the ideas to talk about ideas and technologies that stations are using and that you can use. So this is our 490th episode of This Week in Radio Tech. We're just 10 away from 500. Been doing the show for over 10 years. We've took a summer off, and other than that, we've been on the air almost every week. Skip a few here and there. So we're going to have a great show here today. Got a good lineup of guests coming up, but first, let's bring in my co-host, the beloved engineer from New York City. It's Chris Tobin. Hey, Chris.
Hello, Kirk. How are you doing these fine shelter within days?
I'm good. It's shelter in place. Yeah, we've done a few things outside. The park that we love to go to, because it's a quarter mile down the road. It's called Radnor Lake. In fact, sometimes you may see me with my Radnor Lake coffee mug here. I like yours too. That's good. Radnor's been closed for Radnor's been closed for 2 weeks, like all the state parks in Tennessee, and it's reopening tomorrow. We're hoping to beat the crowd and walk around once, but it might be full of people breathing bad air. So we'll see. How are things in New York City?
Nobody on the street, no cars, no buses.
Wow.
It's pretty quiet, actually. I am walking to it from the transmitter site and literally walking in the middle of 5th Avenue, 6th Avenue, Park Avenue. And once in a while, a police car comes by, they wave, and I'm just walking my way to Times Square, and it's empty. It's,
Yeah.
The only time you ever see it actually, this is more emptiness than even on New Year's Day morning. So it's kind of strange. My goodness. Yeah, at least you have some drunks or people with hangovers on New Year's Day morning, but that's true. That is true.
Yeah.
Here it's been very strange.
Or a few people still partying. Hey!
Well, once in a while you do pass a few apartments and you hear some ruckus noise, so some people are enjoying the time together.
Well, because NAB got canceled, and probably for good reason. I guess we've been here at This Week in Radio Tech. We've been doing the show literally virtually for 10 years now. So typically, I'm here in the Telos Alliance studio. Chris is sometimes at an undisclosed location in New York City. Our producer of the show, Suncast, is not even actually at the studio where the actual switching and electronics and mixing all takes place. He himself is virtually in the studio. And so we've been doing this for years, but for the first time in its history, the world famous and I'll use the word again, beloved Nautel Users Group, or NUG meeting, is being held virtually. It would have been held this past Saturday or Sunday, I guess Sunday morning, but this year it's virtual because they really want to get all the Nautel users together. They got room for hundreds and hundreds of Nautel users. And so, Chris, I want to make sure I'm going to be in attendance Wednesday, April 29th. So this is next Wednesday, not quite a week from now, Wednesday, April 29th at noon Eastern Time, 11 Central, 9 a.m. on the West Coast. You can go register at nautel.com/webinars. Nautel.com/webinars. So the NUG is taking place. A lot of people would totally miss it if it didn't happen. I mean, they would really, really miss it. And who's hosting it was one of our guests last week, Jeff Welton. Jeff is hosting the NUG from his abode in Nova Scotia, but he's got several guests coming in, and they're going to bring you the same information, the same technology that they would have brought you in person at the NAB. Chris, did you ever go to a NUG meeting yourself?
I've been going for several years, yes. They're great.
Yeah.
It's camaraderie amongst the engineers, and then, of course, the panelists and the folks speaking from Nautel and their guests are even more fun. Because it's pretty much an open forum at times. People can say almost anything they'd like, regardless of who's in company.
They're going to have short discussions on product updates, current industry topics, a special appearance by Radio World's Paul McLean. And Paul is an excellent speaker and also an excellent moderator. So Paul's going to be there. And, of course, we'll have some time for Jeff Welton's tips and tricks. So if you can't be Jeff Welton, then at least you can, you know the inside joke. If you can't be Jeff Welton, at least you can watch Jeff Welton. And at the NUG, so again, go to nautel.com, nautel.com/webinars with an S, nautel.com. There you go, /webinars, and register for the virtual NUG Radio Technology Forum. Really, do it today. If you got to do it during the show, fine, do it. At least get the tab open to remind you to do that. It's really important that you do, and I'm going to be there as well. And I suppose Chris will be there virtually too. All right.
Absolutely.
Good for Nautel for serving their customers who they love. All right, I want to bring in our guest now. Our guest is a good personal friend. He's an advertiser on the show, but he's also missing the NAB this year as well. And that's Mike Dosch, Mike Catfish Dosch, from just down the road in Franklin, Tennessee, and angryaudio.com. Hey, Mike, welcome in.
Hey, Kurt. Hey, Chris. How are you guys
Good
doing?
to see you.
Hey, Mike.
Good.
By the way, Kurt, you misspoke a little bit. I'm not missing the NAB.
I have a gut feeling.
Done it for 25 or more years. Never missed a show. I'm really not missing it. So,
but surely you're missing introducing some ideas to customers.
Absolutely, and I miss the customers, but it is a grind, especially on as we get older, it gets harder and harder to do those slogs. Stand there for 4 days in a row. Usually busy, hopefully busy. As
my mind goes, it gets harder for me to count cards at the blackjack table.
Yeah. So that system working for you?
Never has, and actually I've never tried it. I haven't stopped at a blackjack table. Yeah, never will. Yeah. Hey, Catfish, you've got a couple of cool announcements coming up. We're going to hear about them right after an ad, but can you give us a little taste or something? Because a lot of people are broadcasting from home, and I think you're kind of involved with that.
Well, yeah, actually it's pretty cool. We have a new product called the Bluetooth Gadget, and this was just kind of one of those ideas that it's a bit of a head scratcher. Everyone's using smartphones all over the place, and there are there's quite a number of audio devices that will act as a Bluetooth sync. In other words, they'll a Bluetooth speaker, for example. So playing audio back from your phone is a relatively easy thing to do, and there's a lot of products out there that won't allow you to do that. But we had the notion that you might like to use your phone actually as a phone, or as a SIP client. Or as a Skype, as a Skype device, and so we added we took the output, of course, and then we added an input, and we said, okay, as long as you can feed audio back into this device, then it'll go to the telephone, and that'll become your source audio, and as long as you can create a mix minus, then you should be able to use a Bluetooth phone just as you would a broadcast phone. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't really have high expectations for this, because I've heard some pretty awful stuff about Bluetooth. I've never been that impressed with it myself. But it turns out that there are some chipsets out there that implement some high-quality audio codecs like aptX and AAC. And so we got our hands on a particular chipset that just, long story short, sounds amazing. In fact, audio playback sounds like a wire. It doesn't sound like Bluetooth anymore. And so that and the and the ability to feed audio back into the phone, so you can use it as a Skype device or a phone. Use your phone as a phone. What a great ad, isn't it?
Hey, I want to.
That's a new product for us.
Yeah. Hey, hang on. I'll keep your powder dry. I want to hear more, but we're going to take a quick break and hear from my friends at Max Connect Wireless, which will help you out at your home studio. A lot of people are doing it that way. MaxConnectWireless.com. Check out the spelling and the website at MaxConnectWireless.com. They have this product, and it's really a service. It's not just a product. And I'm going to slip away here and pick this thing up. I left it on the floor. There we go. Josh Bone has invented something that I really hoped could happen. I mean, years ago, I was thinking, is this possible to get some kind of prioritized data? Because, no matter how much you're paying for your plan, you're just the same as the next schmo down the road, or in the stadium, or at the car event, or whatever it may be. In terms of your data is no more important than his data, and I'm thinking there ought to be some way to prioritize your data over the 4G wireless network, so that if you're doing a live broadcast, or if you need to get data to a transmitter site that you've got an emergency at, maybe your 950 STL is out or your T1 is out, there ought to be some way to get this done. Well, Josh Bone, who's a brilliant engineer in Alabama, figured this out. He started negotiating with the wireless carriers, and I'm holding in front of me the result of that. Now, it's not the box. The box is a cradle point box, and you can bring your own data modem to Max Connect wireless service. The key is the SIM cards. The SIM cards are going to tie you into a high priority network. It's a different set of APN addresses, and you pay the folks at Max Connect Wireless. They send you the SIM cards. You can buy the Cradle Point modem or other modems from them. In fact, they have some new services coming out where you can get dial-up service as well with a dial-up jack, a POTS jack on here. But you get prioritized data from the Max Connect Wireless, and that means that you can be in a stadium full of people. You can be out in the country, and maybe there's some other users on a lonely cell tower, and they're streaming Netflix. Well, guess what? You get priority. You don't lose packets, and you also get a static IP address with your carrier. That's really important if you want to push audio data to your transmitter site, maybe as a backup, maybe as a full-time thing. So whatever you need to do, if you need your data to be secure and let's say loss-free, all your packets get to and from because you get prioritized service at Max Connect Wireless. You check them out on the web at maxconnectwireless.com, and they have plans for different amounts of data. You pay for the data that you're going to use. They have agreements with Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T. So if your transmitter site or your city is better covered by one carrier or another, just talk to Josh Bone, and he will get you set up with the service. High priority, private APNs, and static IP addresses. And I got to tell you, some major broadcasters are buying these things off the shelf and implementing the service. It really works. Thanks a lot, Max Connect Wireless and Josh Bone, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. All right, we're talking with Michael Catfish Dosch, owner of angryauto.com. We just started talking about the Bluetooth gadget. Do you have one there in front of you, or do I need to grab mine, Catfish?
No, sir. I think I gave my last one to you. We've been selling these things as fast as we build them. So,
well, tell you what,
guess we need to build more.
Talk about using this thing as a hybrid. I'm going to duck over here and grab mine.
Well, a hybrid, as you well know, speaking from the Telos Alliance studio, is a great way to interface to a phone network. And of course, the major concept there is that it takes old phone technology, which was two-wire, and enables you to have a bidirectional conversation without getting a lot of your own self back again through the caller path. And there's a Bluetooth gadget.
What am I looking at
here?
What am I looking at? Obviously, that's an antenna. That must be the Bluetooth.
That's an antenna. So what's different about Bluetooth or telephones, mobile phones, is they're actually inherently four-wire. And so they don't really need the hybrid tech quite so much. There's still some hybrids in the telco network that do some echo suppression and cancellation. But in general, it's not as hard as it used to be with analog phone lines to get a good bidirectional conversation going. So we just kind of tapped into that. We said, look, you got this smartphone, and you're already using it all the time for all kinds of stuff. So let's hook it up to your console and use it. And like I said, my expectations weren't real high. I'm not going to sound like a great marketer here, but I've been pleasantly surprised by how great it is. We've actually had some customers call. They'll call into support and they'll say, "Hey, I'm talking to you on my Bluetooth gadget." So that's a lot of fun.
I want to make sure I understand this. You've loaned this to me, and I never have hooked it up actually, and I'm so ashamed. I've tell people how good it sounds based on what you showed me. But what's the workflow here? We've got a signal input over here, an analog input, and we have left and right outputs. And I guess these connections, well, they don't go to your phone. Obviously, they go to your audio mixing console or wherever you want audio to go in and out of. So that's that part of the workflow. You connect this to the audio console, and then you pair your phone with this. And then I'm guessing whatever you do on your phone goes to your console, and whatever you want to send from the console goes to your phone if you select, this as the device, as the Bluetooth device on your phone. Have I got that about right?
That's about right. Most of it's automatic. So let's say that, let's just start with the outputs. You have two analog outputs, left and right, and you have a digital output. And so you could use either one of those, and they're mutually exclusive. So if you choose analog, then that's what you get, and if you choose digital, that's what you get. But that's the playback audio. So if you're playing music or spots or anything from your phone, using your phone as an audio source, then that's the path to get it into your audio console, or whatever the next device in the chain is. The audio input is, that's the mix minus from the console. And if you got a broadcast board, that's pretty easy to do. Most broadcast boards know how to do mix minus. But surprisingly, it's not that hard if you have a little Mackie mixer or Yamaha mixer or something like that. You use an aux send, and you just turn down the phone source. That you turn down the channel that the phone's coming in on, and you've made yourself a mix minus. And now you can have a nice, clean conversation where the caller is not getting himself back again, and it works actually surprisingly well. Sounds good. And then the automated part, which is kind of interesting, is if you use your phone as an audio playback device, then the Bluetooth gadget knows that you're trying to play back high fidelity, and it'll engage the proper codec. If, though, you're trying to make a phone call, it says, then I need to engage the hands-free profile, and that's a different set of codecs. And most of this just happens kind of underneath the covers without you doing very much other than pairing up your phone and then just using it.
So once the phone is paired, it picks the right profile. If you're doing a phone call, it picks the tube, the bidirectional audio, and which is I guess mono, right?
It is, yes.
Okay, so it would be, yeah. But if you want to use your phone, and some people have an enormous library of music on their phone, or they might use their phone to stream Spotify and put that on their radio station or something, right? Then you get the high quality profile, the stereo, and so you get as good a quality as you can possibly get out of your phone. Yeah,
absolutely. I guess that's kind of the good way of looking at it, is that it automatically adjusts to give you the best audio it can for the current situation. And it does that switching internally without you even being involved. So you could be playing music, and then you could get a call right in the middle of playing music, and it'll fade out. Music will fade out. You'll hear the ringing, and you'll pick up the phone. You'll press the answer button. You'll have your conversation, and then you'll end, and then you'll hear the music again. And all that happens without you really doing anything. It's all just automated.
So what's the jack right here with a little phone icon?
That is so you could use a TRRS 3.5 millimeter plug to plug it into your phone or your computer or any other device that supports that. And by TRRS, it's got left and right audio on the same jack connections that would normally be headphone, and then it's got microphone audio on the remaining ring. And so that's so you can have a hardwired connection. And I just thought it'd be a convenience to put that on the product, because sometimes you just need a jack. Cool thing is the switch allows you to hard switch back and forth. So you could have a phone connected by Bluetooth and another phone connected wired, and just switch back and forth.
Whoa! I can have a playlist on one phone that's, say, wired in, and use another phone to take callers.
There you go.
Oh my gosh! You've just eliminated a whole studio worth of gear
Well, I hope not, gadget. But it is a fun little device, and most of the people that have been buying it or calling about it, the comment I hear so often is, "Wow, this is really cool. Why didn't anyone make one of these before?" And so there you go.
So and Chris may have a comment about this as well. For years, Mike, we've heard bad Bluetooth. Some of the early Bluetooth headsets, or maybe all of them, they were just awful. There was just a lot of cutout and burbling and noise and stuff, and yet it does seem that in the last 2, 3, 4 years, I'm hearing a lot more Bluetooth that is actually worth using. What's been the upgrade in technology over the years in Bluetooth? Do you know about that?
Yeah, the radios have gotten better. The data rates have gotten quite a lot better. And, now we have the advanced audio profile, I guess it's called A2DP. And within A2DP, it's possible to have these high quality audio codecs that take, it's a higher bit rate than it used to be, but it's still a limited bit rate. And so if you take something like aptX or AAC and you couple that with this higher bit rate, you've got really clean audio. We're talking about Zephyr class, audio coming back from your phone over that Bluetooth connection. There's nothing wrong with it. And I'm with you. When I first heard Bluetooth audio, I said, that's not anything I'd want to have to listen to. But this is not your grandfather's. Oh, I'm not going to use that line, am I? Your grandfather's Bluetooth.
Oh gosh. So that's the Bluetooth gadget. You got dealers who represent your company, right? And that's the sales chain.
Yes, sir. One of your sponsors, Broadcast General Store. They keep selling them and complaining because I can't build them fast enough. So.
Okay.
If you guys are listening, we're working on them. I'll go back and start building as soon as I get off this call.
I've been to your shop. There's a whole table full of elves building these things.
Elves, yeah, that's right.
So something else that with all the people working from home, doing broadcasting from home, I saw that you posted a user case for a device that we used to talk about here on the show, and that's the Talkshow gadget. And one thing about working from home, and Rob Bertrand, engineer at WAMU, he set up all of their people from their homes. And Chris Tobin has brought this up as well, and Chris may want to talk about this a bit, and that is try to make sure that the workflow that people have at the station is that when they go home, you try to give them a similar workflow if you possibly can. The fewer things that are really different, the better. And I know that a number of people, are broadcasting like we are. One of the common mistakes that I make on this show is if I'm muted, I forget to unmute, and maybe vice versa. Maybe I've coughed and I wasn't muted, and that's because the mute button on the software that we use to do this show is hidden, or you forget it. It's not a hardware button. It's not the button on the console that I grew up with in the radio business, right? And so this is kind of important for workflow. You want to give people a button to turn their mic on and off if you can. You've got a gadget that turns, $100, $150 Behringer console or Mackie or something into a more broadcast-like experience. What can you say about that thing?
Yeah, that's the Talkshow gadget. And the idea there was, well, I think you explained it really well. You take a low-cost mixer that's really optimized for or designed for live work, or maybe a small club or a band, or something like this. And we're all familiar with them. They're these little Mackie, 6, 8, 10, 12 fader mixing consoles, and they actually spec out really nice. They're not quite in the same class as our broadcast boards, but you know what? They cost a fraction what a broadcast board costs. And they're kind of disposable. They're so cheap. So people want to use them. But there's about 3-4 features that they're kind of missing in order to be more useful for broadcasting. I'm not saying you can't use them for broadcasting as they are. Right out of the box, people do, and people have great success with it. But there's a handful of features that if you could add these features, it would make these things a little bit more useful and a little bit more familiar, like you say, for the radio broadcaster. And one of those features is the ability to turn on and off microphones with a push button, as opposed to finding the fader on the console and moving it around. So with the Talkshow gadget, you kind of put the faders, you make your adjustments in advance, you get all the gains right, you get all the levels right, and then you leave your faders alone. You just say, okay, that's it. I set my faders, I'm done with it. I don't have to touch those anymore. And now you just use the buttons on the front panel to turn on and off the microphones. And because we now know when the mics are on and off, we also can drive an on-air sign, which people do like to do. They do want to have the ability to have an on-air sign which says, hey, the microphones are hot in this room, pipe down. That's a pretty common need in broadcasting. And we get that question quite a lot. People will say, podcasters in particular, because I think it's interesting that podcasters don't generally look to radio broadcasters for how to do things. Podcasters generally look to live sound for how to do things. In other words, they don't go to BSW for their stuff. They go to Sweetwater for their stuff. And it's just a different market. It's different applications. And so they are not familiar with a lot of the things that broadcasters know. So this idea of turning on an on-air sign, or many podcasters have fallen in love with these mica mic arms. They are beautiful, I understand. And many of them have this tally on them to tell you when they're on. So common question is, hey, I got this Yamaha mixer here, so how do I make the lights turn on the mic arm tally? The LED on the microphone arm.
Right, that ring, ring, yeah.
Yeah. So we have the ability to do that because we now know when the mics are on or off. We mute monitors. We actually have a route through so that your monitor speakers route through this device, and it mutes and unmutes the speakers at the appropriate time, so you don't get any feedback. And we had a second input so that you could use you could have like an on-air feed into your monitor. So they're kind of like I said, 3-4 useful broadcast features that if you couple this with the other nice features that you get with the inexpensive mixer, you've got yourself a more radio-like inexpensive mixer, and that's the Talkshow gadget.
Hey, before we go, I think you had one more announcement to make regarding the name Studio Hub. And, we love to talk about Studio Hub here on the show because I love my Studio Hub stuff and my free cables and my short cables, my long cables. Makes wiring really easy. What do you have to tell us about Studio Hub?
Well, I guess it's common knowledge now, but we've never had really the chance to talk live about the fact that Angry Audio has purchased Radio Systems. And Radio Systems left the business last year. They decided that they were going to shut down manufacturing. And we entered into a discussion at that point about how we might be able to keep things going. And that ultimately turned into us buying all of the assets of Radio Systems. And we're continuing to manufacture the more popular products, and we market them under the Studio Hub brand name. So it's kind of a cool thing. We're really happy about it. I've always loved Studio Hub. I do believe actually that I think I may have, maybe not, but the early Axia nodes, not the X nodes, but prior to the X nodes, the early Axia nodes may have been the first broadcast product that wasn't Radio Systems that put Studio Hub connectors on it. So we've got kind of a long-standing relationship with Studio Hub, and it's nice to keep it going.
Cool. All right. And I tell people, call your favorite broadcast dealer, but you may have to insist on Studio Hub when you order this stuff, right?
Well, there's a few copies out there now. People have kind of figured out that it's not the hardest thing in the world to put audio on RJ45. And so there's a few copies out there. I think what most people are a little surprised by is that we're, even though I think we make better quality stuff. Of course, I'm going to say that we're really not that much more expensive than the copies. So it's ask for Studio Hub by name, and we'd appreciate that'll help us keep this going forward. And also remember that it's not just the cables. See, that's the interesting thing is the competitors try to pick off the higher volume things that we might make, but they don't also make the headphone amps and the mic preamps and the button panels and the hubs and the breakouts and all the other things that are in the Studio Hub portfolio. We do. So it's it's nice to be able to go to one company and say, these guys have everything that we need for, putting our studios together, and not have to necessarily pick and choose. I'll buy adapters from these guys, and then I'll do some of my own wiring over here. It's kind of nice to be able to just buy that stuff, but I'm probably biased.
Hey, I want to make sure Chris has a chance to pipe up and comment here. I don't want to leave him alone, sheltering in place in New York City. Hey, Chris, I know you use this stuff. What about that Bluetooth gadget? You got a use for that?
I don't have an immediate use, but I thought of a few people that I do help and consult with some podcasting stuff that I'm going to introduce them to it. It makes total sense on many levels. Actually, it's interesting. I was just talking to someone the other day about workflow, and I know I've been a proponent of that for years, but right now, listening to Mike talk about his product line, and I'm thinking, there's a niche being filled, and people don't even realize it right now, given the circumstances we're all living in. You can actually build off-site facilities for yourself, still operate with your main distribution in the cloud and everything else, but with the Angry Audio product line and the thinking out of the box approach from the standpoint of what you need to do, you can facilitate a nice off-site announcer position, talk show position, and operate as if you're in the studio or wherever you normally would be. And I think people need to start thinking about it in that fashion, because I could see between the Studio Hub, which ideally is the best way to do it for interconnection. There's no other way around it. And then with the products, there's the small boxes here and there. If you're using a inexpensive mixer, Talk Show Gadget makes sense. On-air light control, everything else. All of a sudden now you have a small booth set up somewhere, someone's house, someone's apartment. Maybe you're renting space. Maybe you've actually decided to rent space somewhere in your facility, your city, and you say, we're going to use this space. You've just built yourself a small studio out having to spend $15,000. You could spend $5,000 and still get something done.
This Bluetooth gadget to me is a great way to be able to put newsmakers and VIPs and the mayor, whomever, on the air when you have to operate from a shelter-in-place location, when you're at your second studio, your backup studio, when you're at the transmitter site. This is how you can easily get these people to get their voices on the air, to get their assurance, their reassurance, their warnings, whatever it may be, to get newsmakers on the air quickly.
Well, if you're a spoken word station... Oh, go ahead, Catfish.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
If you're a spoken word station, right, sports and news, but let's say sports, you could be thinking way out of the box with your sports announcers on location somewhere. Here's what you can be doing. They can have the Bluetooth attachment at their local end, and with using SIP technology, voice over IP, you could be call screening somewhere off-site, forwarding the call they need to talk to that phone on their SIP network, and they could do a local interaction, have everything at their fingertips, and feel still in the control. Right, whereas you have to right now in the current conditions on several setups, have a producer, have a board up, press a button, then tell the host, okay, caller 12 is online. They don't have to worry about it. As soon as the phone picks up, they hear audio, they go. That little Bluetooth gadget gives you that opportunity to just rethink how the workflow can function, and now give you even more opportunities. I'm just saying.
Catfish?
Well, I had a question for actually both of you guys. I'm curious what you think is going to happen now that that broadcasters are learning how to remote work. Do you think this will continue, or do you think that when this weird phase that we're in passes, everyone's going to go shooting back to the office and it'll be business as usual?
I'm guessing it will not be business as usual for everyone. I'm thinking, at least some conversations I've had with a few folks, if you're a real smart broadcaster and you're a content creator, you'll go back to the way you normally do things, but add this new element into the mix and actually expand on what you're doing. But then there's the other side of the coin, and there'll be operations that are just strictly looking at the numbers, and we'll probably start thinking, well, it's cheaper if we just make them 1099 contract employees and they just produce a show and they give it to us and we're done. That will take away from the creativity. But I have a funny feeling that's going to happen with the larger groups that are in such debt, they're going to have to do something. That's where you'll see that happen. But the smaller groups, medium size, I think will be looking at this as an opportunity to actually expand rather than contract business.
Yeah, I think when this is over, we're going to go back to business as usual for a while, but people will know this is an option, and it may take some time. Some places may say, hey, you worked really well from home, and it's okay with me if you voice track for 3 other stations. Just do your morning show from the house. And hey, maybe, you know what I wouldn't want to be in right now is maybe the commercial real estate business. because there's plenty of offices who are finding out that we don't need everybody to come in. We can do half the square footage that we have now and let people work from home. If they're doing it, there's people who work from home just fine. Other people have a lot of trouble working from home. I'm not saying that one's good and one's bad. It's nice to have the camaraderie. And if you're not used to it, then that can be a problem too. So yeah, I see a mixed bag just exactly like Chris Tobin does. I agree with him completely. Catfish?
It's interesting. I think this, whatever we're going through right now, I think it's going to lead to a lot of changes in a lot of industries. And when I think about radio, which has kind of struggled recently as it's kind of adjusted to the new economy, I could see this becoming a bit of the new normal. Like Chris is saying, if it allows the broadcaster to reduce costs some more, then there's going to be the temptation to do that. But I'm wondering if that really is the end of creativity. If everyone has a little studio in their house to make radio, is it possible that they could end up doing more interesting things as a result of having that little studio in the house? We look at what musicians did in the 90s. If you wanted to record, you used to go into a professional recording studio, and then the Project Studio came about. And so I just wonder how many great albums we now have because the Project Studio gave the musicians the time and the resources to be able to develop new ideas and new creative outlets. Whereas, if they had to do that at $25 an hour in a professional studio, it might not have happened. And I wonder, so if everyone's got a little studio at home to make radio, how much interesting content might get created?
Well,
that's just a question.
And here in Nashville, plenty of artists have done home studios, and they're not going into big studios, or they're just doing certain sections of it at the traditional big studios, but they've got studios at home that they're doing a lot of work in. So we could we should have scheduled a whole hour for this, but we've got two other people coming up soon. Mike Dosch, thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate you taking a half hour of your time out and talking with us and telling us what we would have seen at NAB. Thanks very kindly for your creativity and being forward and telling about it. All right. Hey, it's Chris Tobin, and you're very welcome. Hope to see you back here. Do the show from your place at some point.
Okay.
Hey, it's this week in Radio Tech, episode 490. We're talking about what you would have seen at NAB, and we're going to be right back. A couple more people coming up. Jeff Adams is a radio disc jockey, and he's enough of a technical guy to put his own TV studio together at his home. Pretty impressive. He does the Jeff Adams Show. He's going to be talking about, he'll be with us. We'll be talking about working from home and doing that, and how that's good, bad, different, how it may change in the future, and also television for radio, visual radio. He'll be talking about that. And then Chuck Kelly is coming up later on in the show. He's got some interesting announcements from BE Elenos as to the technologies that they would have shown at NAB, but they're going to be showing them right here on This Week in Radio Tech. All coming up in just a few minutes. We'll be right back. This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you in part by our friends at Broadcaster's General Store. And look what I have here. I have a box that came in from Hank Landsberg at Henry Engineering. I'm going to open it right up here and see what's here. Well, there's another little box inside. That looks like a little power supply. Aha. Here's the piece de la resistance. This is the new Henry Engineering Superlight. A Superlight. This is an LED tally light controller. Yeah, it's for controlling LED light up boxes, like on-air lights or lights on your microphone, as Catfish was talking about. And it's not for, is it for? Well, it does have Form C relay contacts, so it can run other things as well. But it's also for controlling your LED lights. This is so cool. Look, he sent me this. It's a little instruction sheet. It's so simple. It's so simple. There's one sheet. Let's see, here's another sheet. Okay, here we go. This is the instructions right here. LED tally light controller. You know what Hank Landsberg does? He gives you the schematic diagram right there. So you don't have to guess, well, how does this thing work? You can see exactly what's inside. If you ever need to troubleshoot it, there's not that many parts inside, but it is smart. It does do flashing if you want to do flashing. A Superlight is a control interface for controlling LEDs and other low voltage studio tally lights. It's ideal for switching the on-air warning lights when a studio mic is live. Superlight can be controlled with virtually any broadcast console and can directly power any 12-volt tally light that requires half an amp, 500 milliamps or less. So the power supply that runs this will also run the LED light. You don't have to provide that power separately. It'll come right out of this box. It can be controlled with a DC voltage or a GPI contact closure. Control is via the plug-in Euroblock connector. Those are nice. Also has two RJ45 connectors for compatibility with any network installation that can use Cat5 or Cat6 cabling. So any two wires of the RJ45 input can be user assigned to control Superlight with a DC input. The Cat5, Cat6 cabling can be looped through also so that multiple Superlights can be controlled with one cable. The same or different control wires can be used to control each Superlight in the system. So that means you can daisy chain several of these and put them on different pairs and have them react differently if you like, or have them all react exactly the same, whatever you want. The output is switched electronically, so there's no arcing, no switching noise. It can directly power 12-volt relay contacts. For lights that require a higher voltage or current, you can use an external power source up to 30 volts DC and up to 2 amps. So Superlight can be attached to any convenient surface using the unit's integral, mounting flanges, and it's shipped with the mating Euroblock connectors and the power supply. So, Hank Landsberg just makes all kinds of things that make your life easier in a broadcast facility, and this is one of them, the new Superlight. The Henry Super Relay has been popular for decades now. I think I was installing Super Relays literally 30 years ago, and I still have a few that we're using to run 110-volt lights. But this is cool. Superlight runs the LED lights that are so popular today, and of course, Henry Engineering has lots of other things too. That whole sports pod and sportscaster system that we've been talking about here on the show for over a year now. Check it out. Go to the website at henryeng.com, henryeng.com. Not only the Superlight, but lots of other products as well. Metal case products, some in a plastic case, depending on what you need. And you might remember from last week, Hank, or from the last time he was on, Hank told us about that new product that bypasses your UPS. If you need to work on your UPS, then inline UPS, and or it fails in some way, that UPS switcher, that's coming out soon, shipping real soon. Check it out, henryeng.com, and thanks a lot to Broadcasters General Store. That's where you need to order Henry Engineering gear at bgs.cc or call Broadcasters General Store at 352-622-7700. That's 352-622-7700. Talk to anybody there. Buck is great. But we just bought some coax from Buck at one of our stations. We just bought 10 grand worth of coax. So Buck ought to be really happy now. It got there exactly when Buck said it would. And it was rolled off the truck for us and put right in the transmitter building. It's fantastic. All right. Good work from Broadcaster General Store. Stand by. We got Jeff Adams coming up right now. We're back on This Week in Radio Tech, episode 490. We've done 490 of these things. It's kind of a war story episode, and so we may just have a bit of a war story to talk about here during this next segment. I'm Kirk Harnack here in the Telos Alliance studio, Nashville, Tennessee, and my guest right now is a fellow that I've known for some years, and you can't spend 10 minutes around this guy and not just fall in love with him. I mean, this guy is so cool. He does a video show. He's on the radio, too. He's been in the business for years and years, and he gets this thing both from the on-air side of things, and he's messing with technology all the time. I don't know if he knows what he's doing, but he messes with it until he gets it right. I'm talking, of course, about Jeff Adams. Hey, Jeff, welcome in.
Hey, thanks for having me. I apprate it.
Look at you in that studio. Holy cow.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my God.
Let's take a look here. Oh, let's get there's all kinds of shots here, but yeah, there we go. There's a little, there's my belly. You saw my belly there. But.
So, well, first of all, I'm envious of your camera. What is that?
Oh, this is a Blackmagic Ursa Mini. I wouldn't recommend it like a broadcast camera, but they shoot I got it originally because I was going to do a lot of social type of videos. I wanted to do more on a pro level, but it's a Blackmagic Ursa Mini. They're great cameras. You can, that comes with the, you got to get the lenses with it. So even you just buy the skeleton, you still got to buy the lenses, and the lenses are where the money's at, of
course, it's got that wide aperture, so the background behind you is a bit out of focus. And that looks good, except, you know what? This stuff behind me I kind of depend on. So I'm not sure I can put the background out of focus on mine.
Well, I mean, for the stuff I do here, I mean, I do one contract job here. But they let me just keep everything as is. So we're good to go with that. So I don't have that problem.
Hey, so we're here to talk about what you didn't see at NAB, because NAB is now, well, it didn't happen, but it would have been a day behind us. And so you have associated yourself, you've been checking out video streaming companies for the last few years, and you've associated yourself with a couple here and there. But tell me about your latest endeavor and what we didn't see at NAB, because we didn't get to see you at NAB. What are you doing these days with a company that does video streaming?
Yeah, well, currently this beginning of the year, I took a job with Broadcast Pix and jumped on board. I heard that they were, kind of trying to create a radio solution for live streaming for radio programming. So we came up with this great new product called RadioPix, and it's a phenomenal project. In fact, at the station I work for at JVC Broadcasting, I work multiple jobs, Mon. I got multiple jobs. But I work for JVC Broadcasting, based out in New York and Orlando. We're actually going to put the first RadioPix in JVC in the next couple of weeks here. So once that happens, I got to come back on and just show you the nuts and bolts of this thing. It's amazing. I'm telling you.
So you would have shown RadioPix at the NAB show. You're installing it at the studio that you work at. Tell me a couple. Well, tell you what. Let's think about some advantages of RadioPix, and then let's talk about the broader topic of video for radio. And I've got an intriguing question about that. But tell me a couple things. What's cool about RadioPix?
Well, RadioPix we were going to release at NAB. We were actually the show I'm on called the Shannon Burke Show. It's a 4-hour program, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m., 7 p.m. drive home show. We were actually going to fly the show out for 2 days, and we were going to do it using RadioPix within, the confines. I think we were supposed to be in Central Hall, and we were going to do the show for 4 hours instead of, people doing, demos. You know how NAB goes. People, they go, this is what it does. But I'm like, from a visual radio standpoint, I always saw people trying to sell it, but they weren't really selling it. I wanted to give the ability, this thing in action, to show people exactly how you do this when you're running a program. So that was kind of our goal. But obviously the COVID-19 got us, and, we all had to stay home, which is sad. But, RadioPix is going to really change the way people are doing visual radios, because a lot of people are using webcams, and they've got configurations. They've bought things. They bought Blackmagic ATMs. They use Wirecast. They use vMix. And they've used, other companies that I don't want to mention right now. They've used their products, and they're just not really happy with those products. And, with the RadioPix, our idea was to really simplify the setup that, an average, person that doesn't necessarily that is an engineer could set it up and be able to walk through the elements of setting up, a live show for the radio program.
Okay. So easy to operate, looks good. People have figured out the algorithms for making cameras switch, and if two people are talking at once, go to a wide shot or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, so let's talk a little bit more about the bigger picture of visual radio, as some people call it. Some people say we want to avoid making we make good radio. We want to avoid making bad television. So give me your philosophy on showing disc jockeys or whatever you want to show during, for a radio show. What's your philosophy on the usefulness and best usefulness of this?
Well, I mean, a lot of, I think it was last summer, I was up in Baltimore 98 Rock consulting. They had just installed a system, and I was up there, and, a lot, if you look at a lot of, I mean, there are some radio programs out there doing it right. So I'm not talking about them, but most of their approach when you think of visual radio is, hanging a PDZ in a corner, and there's a voyeuristic view, and hey, we're live on the air. But, with me toying around with live streaming and realizing that, coming from a radio background, but then doing shows that were strictly for the internet, and there was a chat there, is getting the talent to engage with the chat, as long as, with the phone calls, the text messages that are coming in, and learning that skill set. Because when you're doing live video, that's just it. You're right. We don't want to do bad television. So how you don't do bad television as a radio host is like you don't do this anymore. You've got to talk into the camera like, you're talking to somebody, and make sure that the people that are watching feel like you're talking to them, which is very hard for, on-air talent, because they're used to just, looking around, looking at notes. And sometimes you're going to do that. You're going to look at your notes, but to have that ability that you're talking to someone at the camera.
That's a good point. And, I try to do that on this show. Sometimes the camera catches me looking around or checking the time and things like that. But yeah, you're right. I guess if you watch a radio host talking, you'd like to see that radio host looking at you. And on the one hand, it may be hard to kind of remember that at first, but radio hosts, especially talk show hosts, they're good at talking off the cuff. They ad-lib. And if you're ad-libbing, you don't have to look at so many notes. Sure, you may have to look away at your social media screen, or look away at a sponsor message that you haven't memorized. But looking right at the camera is not so hard for people who are talking for a living. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen. You're going to look down. You're going to look at notes. And another thing with this, because everybody's trying to figure out, how do I implement, a live video program to our station? And there's a lot of people experimenting with it. Like, a lot of people just, they end up airing the commercials and they leave the cameras on. Or I've seen a lot of stations too with, it's a very creative idea. What we're going to implement is that we're going to help the sales team a little bit. We'll be able to do a little bit more customized local selling, or even worldwide selling, where we're going to leave the cameras on and we're going to mute the local commercials off, and we're going to either talk with the people watching on the live stream, or maybe roll more global advertising during that time, videos and commercials. And so there's a lot of experimenting that's happening with this. And for the past 3 months, I've been having my head in the sand with this, trying to figure out, because that's the biggest thing, engineers, program directors, general managers, like, hey, how do I monetize off this? How does my station make money if I'm going to invest in this gear? And so I have been trying to find the right solutions and talking to a lot of these technology companies that are in radio, figuring out how, if you purchase this equipment, how you can monetize, where your sales team can go out there and make money for your station.
I've always been excited about visual radio, and years ago we were started doing some of this at one of my stations in American Samoa, because we had a cable channel. We had 2 cable channels, and one of them was just an info channel, with happy birthday so and so, and the Kiwanis Club is doing this or that. But the other one carried our people, our morning team, and we had a guy hitting a little switcher. It was a little four input switcher. We had several lipstick cameras, and it worked out. It worked out okay. But I'm looking forward to better sophistication, being able to tune in and see your morning show, not on the cable channel, but on your smartphone, and be able to continue to hear the programming, even if you want to visually switch to something else. I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to look forward, Jeff, to having you back when you've got a RadioPix system in, and we'll get a good explanation of how that works. And I think a lot of folks are seeing several systems. Some of them may be kind of glommed together of existing technologies, and a little bit of secret sauce is added. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing what RadioPix has. Now, before you go, this is episode number 490. We try to do a War Stories episode every 10 episodes. Often we fail. Sometimes we do it. But you've been in broadcasting for so long, Jeff. I know that you must have some kind of a there I was story, or where everything just went completely wrong and you pulled it out of the hat anyway and made it all right. I don't know. Have you got something you can intrigue us with for a minute and a half or two?
Well, I think I've got 2 quick stories. Obviously we talked about NAB, National Association of Broadcasters. I was involved with Broadcast Beat with NAB Live.
Oh, yeah.
So I would cover, radio, podcasting, live streaming. And then there was something else that I forget. But Ryan, who runs the whole thing, he was all excited. I was just happening to stand there eating a donut. I didn't go on. I was just looking at my notes of who I'm going to interview and make sure I'm prepped. And he goes, hey man, you got to do my show. And it was like 9 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, he goes, I got to go interview the Good Morning America people. They're here. And he said, you got to do my show. I said, well, what's it about? He goes, cloud storage. And I'm like, okay. And cloud storage. And so I go, you have any notes? And he's a cloud storage expert, so his notes were like this big. He hands me the notes, and I'm like sitting there, and this is probably 5 minutes until I was supposed to go on. So I can't even remember the guy's name. He was with a huge security cloud company, and I sat there and I just tried to pull things out of the air to try to somewhat intelligent, but then I finally said, I think we're going to break. We're going to break right now. I was humiliated. I walked up. The guy probably thought, this guy is a complete moron. What is he doing interviewing me? So.
Oh, gee. Yeah, go ahead. You got a second story, a bonus here. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then there was, I had this contract job with this online, it was BeLive.tv.
Yeah.
And so I did this show, which I think someone else hosted now. I created it for him. But I was interviewing one of the biggest Facebook social media marketing influencers. So I'm in a deep conversation with this lady, trying to be all professional because she's all professional, on video. She looks great. And, all of a sudden my chair just goes out from underneath me. It tanks all the way down to the bottom. And I just sink like this to the camera, like real slow. And my head goes down. And she goes, what happened to you? Did you sink? Did you go in an elevator? I'm like, no, my chair's broke. My chair's broke. I think I have the footage somewhere. I have to find it.
You make me realize we have funny things that happen to us on the radio. Usually, often, or sometimes, we have radio stories of, I thought the mic was off, right? And it was really on, and said something pretty inappropriate. But in television, we have both audio and video, and it seems like it's so much easier for something to go really wrong with what we see. Yeah?
Right. Yeah.
Gee, Christmas. Oh, man. Jeff, thank you for being with us, and I can't wait to have you back on when you can do a lot of show and tell, maybe from the studio where you're going to be where you are broadcasting from, but you add the RadioPix in, and I'm just looking forward to see another good option for visual radio and to see how you guys use it and how you make it work, and interested to see or hear how you monetize that. That's really cool.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. Thanks for having me today.
Jeff Adams, the Jeff Adams Show. Thanks for being with us, man. Really appreciate it. I'm Kirk Harnack. I'm Kirk Harnack on This Week in Radio Tech. It's This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack, and on this segment, it's more of what you didn't see at NAB. Now, we're all home. We're not in Las Vegas. So let's check in with somebody that we've checked in with before. Been a friend for a long time. Introduced me to FidoNet years ago, and we're way beyond that now. It's Chuck Kelly with BE Elenos. Hey, Chuck.
Kirk, it's awful good to be back. Nice to be on the show. It's a darn shame, though, that we're not at NAB, because this was going to be quite the year for the Elenos Group. And last year was the first year I was with the organization. And Elenos is, of course, Elenos, Itelco, BE, Broadcast Electronics, and Pro Television Technologies. And last year was kind of a hint of innovation to come. And this year we were putting meat on the bones. So it's a darn shame we're not there and not everybody can see it. But I'm going to do my best to hit the highlights here and now.
Well, and I'm delighted about this because when I met you with BE Elenos and understood about the different technology areas that this merging and other companies and other professionals that Elenos has brought together in the last few years, it's really looking pretty powerful. And you guys have a lot of resources at your disposal now, and you've made products to go along with that. Why don't we jump right in? You've got a lot to cover. Let's see what we would have seen there. We'll look at
the first thing is a brand new digital 3 kilowatt FM transmitter from Broadcast Electronics, the STX E3. And the E signifies that it has an integrated digital exciter controller. So it's all in that 3 kilowatt box. It's really the only transmitter of its type that has hot pluggable power supplies from the front panel. So you take off those 4 knobs that you can see hand screwed on the front, and you can pull out the GE Lineage power supplies right from the front panel, hot pluggable.
That's pretty cool because I've taken power supplies out of some other transmitters, and even if they're in the back, there's usually a big cables in the back. Sometimes there's a big a coax in the back.
Well, and not only that, but even if you have a power screwdriver, you better have packed a lunch.
Yes, and as much as I love transmitter sites, I'd rather not pack a lunch.
Absolutely. Let's go to the next slide.
Cool.
One of
What's
the cool
next?
things about this is that it has a non-flash web GUI as standard. It's a very powerful GUI. It's a fully direct-to-channel digital exciter, so it's capable of doing HD radio. It's capable of doing DRM+. It's got dynamic RDS built in. There's an audio silence sense, detecting audio failover, automatic switching. And one of the sources that it has is MPX over AAS. So it really covers all of the bases.
Wow. That's a beautiful looking display. It looks like what I see there.
Yes, it is. And the phone is there. You only see the logo there, but it has the ability to see the same stuff on the phone because it doesn't use flash right from the get-go. This isn't the promise of the future. This is right now. It does that.
That's pretty cool with the dynamic RDS built in. I guess how do you deliver RDS data to it?
You can connect it to an IP port on there, or you can connect it via RS-232.
Oh, okay. Got your choice. Cool.
Yep.
All right. Now, in the world of Audio Vault, that company's been around a long time, that division.
Yep.
What's going on
and
there?
We're coming out with another version. We just got, by the way, the largest order for Audio Vault in the history of our company, and I can't disclose who it's for, but it's a massive, huge order. And part of that order required things that we didn't do yet. So we're introducing version 11 because that order is delivering now, and it's flexible, no one size fits all. Can be configured to your needs. One of the things that's very cool about it, though, and is very topical, I think, is the next page. Oh, and one more thing on this one. I'm sorry. Yeah. We integrate now with Music Master and Weedlesoft, so we can do library database synchronization between the Audio Vault and those systems.
Oh, and before we go to the next page, I want to ask you about this thing about multiple UIs per playout engine. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, that means you can have multiple places that you work on it and controlling the same output. Now, obviously, not all of them should be finger poking at the same time, but nevertheless, it can be done.
Cool. Okay, so the next page about
the next page is talking about FlexWeb, and this is something that is so topical for today in our situation right now of social distancing and doing things. You can do everything that you can do in the Audio Vault with FlexWeb from a browser anywhere. And it's very, very powerful. If you have multiple stations that you've got to control, you can control multiple stations from that same browser. And because of the unique and tragic conditions going on in this country, if you're already an Audio Vault user, you can talk to your BE sales representative about how you can get FlexWeb for free for 90 days. So we think that is a way of helping stations who wouldn't normally be doing live assist or whatever from a distance, but maybe today.
That is pretty interesting, being able to do that. So many people are moving to HTML, to browser-based control, and you've got this built in, and even remote browser-based voice tracking.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
That's super cool.
I think it helps stations be far more effective and not have to go out and risk things in the marketplace.
Yeah. Yeah, and easier for the talent to jump in, get their job done. Exactly. They don't have to fiddle with apps. That can be a pain. I've had to set that up for people. Wow.
And you could be virtually live. I mean, you could voice track 10 seconds before you're on the air, right? So I mean, it gives you a tremendous amount of flexibility.
Okay, that's called the FlexWeb from
That's
Audio
called the FlexWeb.
Cool.
That's right.
All right.
Next thing up is the Avatar test set system. This is something that's brand new. I don't think it's ever been seen at NAB before. This is a little tiny, surprisingly inexpensive box, which is basically an SDR, but it's got a broadcast-specific user interface. So it's a 16-bit FM high-precision direct sampling SDR. It accurately measures RF spectrum, MPX, baseband, RF spectrogram, modulation parameters, and get this, you can even tell your signal to noise over the current circuit with modulation.
Oh my. You don't have to kill modulation, measure that?
You don't have to kill modulation to get your signal to noise. It's a very clever little box.
That sounds pretty clever.
It decodes your RDS, tells you what's going on.
Yeah, I was going to ask about it. So that's a good way to verify RDS if you can't find a modern automobile nearby to test it. We've had that problem.
That's right. So there's a lot that's coming. It also has, this is one of those watch this space kind of things. It also has an input for AM. We don't have the software to do anything apart from look at the spectrum at the moment, but it does cover that range as well. So you can do AM.
So when you were on the show some weeks ago and talked about this concept of an RF supercomputer, so what's new for this NAB?
Well, I almost hinted at it, but the really big news is now the RF supercomputer can do HD radio. We've been working night, day, weekends on it for a long time, and we've finally been able to update the software. You understand that the RF supercomputer is basically a programmable SDT, if you will, a software-defined transmitter, and it lives with every video standard in the world, digital television standard in the world. But now it does both DRM plus, it does DAB and DAB plus, and it does HD radio. And when it does HD radio, the XGen, which in most boxes is a separate device, is actually integrated into the software on the card. So it's got a couple of things that make it very different. One is that it has an advanced adaptive pre-correction system, which I think is better than anything else that I'm aware of on the marketplace. It does account for what's called memory effect, and most of the other companies' products don't do that. And that's a big deal. That memory effect can provide you additional pre-correction, which provides additional PAPR, which reduces the Crest factor and thus either improves your MER or improves your efficiency, your choice. The other thing it's got both linear and nonlinear samples. Most of the HD radio stuff in the marketplace has nonlinear samples. That is, it takes a sample of the RF going to the antenna, brings it back and compares it with ideal, and then creates this correction factor. But in television, they have a very narrow bandpass filter as well that is also in series, and they have to correct for the amplitude effects of that filter and the group delay effects of that filter.
Oh, wow.
And so they also bring back linear samples. And in most cases, that's really not a factor for radio. However, there are lots of stations these days that are using combiners, putting multiple stations onto a single antenna. And what this thing allows you to do is get rid of all of the bad stuff that combiner is doing to you and do it in real time.
So where does this fit in vis-a-vis the importer-exporter model?
You would feed the E to X into this. Okay, so so in other words, what you would feed from your importer and export would go straight into the XGen via an IP port, just like normal. It's just that there's no separate XGen.
Okay, gotcha.
And then this is the exciter. I mean, this is the exciter, and it's got a complete, as we discussed last week, it's got a complete user interface built into it that shows you everything that's going on, including the spectrum. It shows you the status of all the stages, your MER on a real time basis. I mean, it's very advanced.
Is this RF supercomputer, this software defined transmitter? Is this something that in the world of HD radio? This is we're this week in Radio Tech. Is this something that will go into BE Elenos transmitters or other brands of transmitters, or what?
It'll go into BE Elenos transmitters for now.
Okay.
And in fact, all of our BE Elenos transmitters are being designed to be able to handle Class AB and digital operation going forward. So there are new developments coming out that we're not announcing quite yet, but all those products will be capable of doing HD radio in the future.
Gotcha. Well, many of our viewers and listeners in the world of radio engineering are also called upon to look after TV transmitters, and I think that's next for you.
And I appreciate the ability to just talk about this briefly, because there are a lot of people that are in both camps, and we've come out with something very creative and very cool. We've taken and put both an ATSC-1 and an ATSC-3 receiver into a new series of Genesis TV transmitters available from Broadcast Electronics. This allows us to become a complete translator that same RF supercomputer is in there. So it's got all the advanced adaptive pre-correction and LDM and scheduling functions, covers every one of the digital television standards. You buy it for ATSC1 today, and then it can be a translator from ATSC1 to ATSC1. But in the future, you flip a switch and your software changes, and you can, for instance, receive an ATSC3 stream and transmit an ATSC3 stream, or you can receive an ATSC3 stream and translate a ATSC1 stream. So
oh my goodness.
Really flexible.
Oh my goodness. Now, one of the bullet points on this slide, it says it has a Doherty PA for high efficiency. Oh my goodness. I thought that went out with Continental transmitters. This is pretty cool.
Oh, no. This is, what's interesting in television, if you follow the television transmitter business, is that in the last 6, 7, 10 years, something like that, we have gone from typical efficiencies for solid state television transmitters in the 20 to 30% range, and now we're in the 40 to 50% range, and a lot of it is due to Doherty amplifiers. And there's actually a webinar that I've got coming up where I'm going to have Morten Simonsen, who in my view is one of the smartest people on the planet. He lives in Copenhagen, Denmark, and he is going to explain everything about Doherty and why it's useful to transmitters they're doing OFDM. It turns out, and I'll give you the Cook's Notes version here. It turns out that the peaks that digital amplifiers require can be much, much higher than the average level. That's what PAPR stands for. So what Doherty does is, instead of designing your operating position such that you can cover all those peaks, or 99% of them or something, you can use a lower number so that the most of the transmission is being done with a single amplifier, and have another amplifier that only comes on when those super high peaks are on there. And that means your efficiency is far, far, far better.
And this is what I only took care of one transmitter in my life that was a Doherty design. Mm-hmm. And it was a Continental 10 kilowatt, and it didn't have much metering on it to help you out. But I understood the design. So this really works the same way. And thank you for helping me understand that. Yeah.
It's very interesting, fascinating, and it's revolutionizing the television business.
So, Chuck, if people want more information on these things you've talked about, or anything else about this company, BE Elenos, where should they be directed?
Why don't you send them on to me? You can put my email address in your company notes there on their web page, but it's ckelly@bdcast.com.
All right, awesome. You guys are just cutting edge. I really appreciate the education.
And we're having fun. I hope that's obvious.
By the way, as long as we're talking about cutting edge and RF, anything new you're doing in the ham radio realm?
Yeah, I've got a whole bunch of stuff I'm doing with ham radio right now. Mostly having to do with whisper. I don't know if you've seen the number of balloons that are going around the world that are running 10 milliwatts on 20-meter whisper. I've been tracking those.
Oh my God!
And they're circumnavigating the Earth with 10 milliwatts on a solar panel and weighing about 5 grams.
Oh my goodness! We got to do stuff. We'll have to do a show just on that. That sounds pretty cool.
Sounds good, my friend.
Oh wow. Chuck Kelly, thank you so much from BE Elenos. We'll have his email address for you in the show notes, and you can get in touch with BE Elenos that way. Great update, what you would have seen at NAB. How about a genuine something absolutely free? It's from Angry Audio. It's the Studio Hub 7-foot Cat 5 cable. Yeah, and it's free, and it's shielded. It's exactly what you want to hook up with your Studio Hub cable adapters right there, the ones with the female RG45 on them. You can get one of these free for every one of these you buy. You just have to ask for it. You don't have to mention my name. You don't have to mention Chris Tobin's name. When you order, though, from your favorite dealer, when you order these to hook up your gear in the studio, doing a new studio build, doing some reformatting, doing some changes, every one of these you order, say, I want my free cable, but you got to ask for it or else they won't send it to you. It doesn't come automatically. It only comes because of our relationship between Angry Audio and This Week in Radio Tech. Ask for yours, not just one for every one you buy. You order 50 of these, get 50 free cables. You'll enjoy it. From Angry Audio. Check them out with all the cool stuff they have, including the gadgets and the gizmos, and the whole Studio Hub line. The mic pre's, the headphone amps, a lot of the wiring accessories, the little adapters that just help you do good stuff. The dongles, splitters, and couplers, the match jacks and DAs. It's all there at angryaudio.com. Thanks a lot. Hey, Chris, let's get a quick wrap up. What about this year? We didn't go to NAB, and yet some of us are happy about it. Chuck Kelly expressed he was really, really sad that they didn't get to go and see customers. For me, I enjoyed the break, and I learned a lot just being here for this equal amount of time. What about you?
I would say the same. I've enjoyed the break. I mean, it's information overload when you travel to Vegas for NAB, but it's worth it. I think our three guests that we had today give them a moment of pause to think about what you could be doing to generate revenue at your stations, both radio and TV. I think what Chuck talked about actually has a lot more for radio than you might realize. And I've been trying to talk to some folks in the business about this next-gen TV that's coming on the horizon and how radio could participate, but everyone seems to think it doesn't make sense, so we'll see. But I think Elenos and BE and the group there in Telco have an idea of where things are going in the future. They're pretty much poised to be in the right spot. And I think Catfish has got the audio side of things perfectly laid out for both off-site, in-studio, and pretty much anything you think of outside the box. And Henry Engineering the same way. I mean, between the three of them, and then in the video, radio, Jeff, with everything going on there too. I mean, we got some good stuff this show, and I think it's just imagination is the key. Technology's already there. You just got to imagine how to use it, and then you can monetize it.
Between the guests we had on last week, what you won't see at NAB, being just a day or two before NAB would have started, and what you didn't see at NAB, say we did that future tense, past tense. Last week we had Josh Bone, we had Jeff Welton, we had Marty Sachs on talking about the technologies that their companies are offering, and all good stuff. I wish I had the stuff back in the 80s, right, when I was beginning my engineering career. And then today with Jeff Adams talking about visual radio, and then we just heard from Chuck Kelly and from Mike Dosch. I mean, I'm not saying we're covering everything, but we're covering the booths and the products that I would have gone to see, right? And so we're living. On the one hand, I know, some people say radio's in trouble. There's a lot of competition. There's the whole internet thing. But there's also people doing a lot of creative things. And there's people who are keeping their stations alive. I know people whose radio stations are thriving. And part of it is because they've got the tools to do the job. They've got the tools to do the creativity. Chris, I'll give you the last word, and then we'll go.
Radio isn't dying. The only thing that's dying is the creative imagination. That's what's not running. Otherwise, the business is definitely growing, has growth potential, has a lot going on. There's plenty of people doing it. I know several. So I say this NAB that we missed out physically, virtually, we definitely have an opportunity to do a lot of great stuff this fall. And I just think it's time to start thinking differently. What can you do without? What can't you do without? How do we refigure what we normally have done for the last 20 years the same old way, right? That's how we always did it. So why do we keep doing it? Well, it's not working. But that's how we always did it.
And you can enjoy something that you might well have enjoyed in Las Vegas, and that is the virtual Nautel Users Group, the NUG. Remember to go to nautel.com/webinars, nautel.com/webinars, and you'll see Jeff Welton and Paul McLean from Radio World and lots of other good stuff. Check it out. Go ahead and do that today. The webinar is week. It's Wednesday next week. Yeah, Chris?
I'm just saying with Jeff, it's always things about, he always talks about things that go boom. You got to remember that. If you're
he will say
attendee,
that.
You know the phrase.
That's right. That's right. Hey, we got to go. It's been an extra long show. Chris, thanks so much for hanging on. I appreciate you reporting from New York City. And next week, we've got Dan McQuillan from Broadcast Bionics on for the whole show. They have two amazing things that they are going to be showing, that they were going to show at NAB. So it'll be another wrap up of what you didn't see at NAB, but it'll be one guy, Dan McQuillan, you and me and Dan, and we'll talk about some amazing technology from Bionics, which they just have this vision that's just incredible. So looking forward to that. Thanks a lot to Suncast. Yeah, it's going to be good. A whole hour with Dan. And thanks a lot, Suncast, for producing the show This Week in Radio Tech. Thanks a lot to Andrew Zaria, the founder of the GFQ Network. We'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye.